In today's episode, we'll cover the charges against 7 U.S. soldiers for crimes relating to the death of a fellow soldier, the call for answers, and the continued investigation into a case that questions the Army's communication and investigation. This is the case of Specialist Enrique Roman-Martinez, right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, the weekly true crime podcast discussing relationships gone terribly wrong, where our motto is, say it with me, you're either someone's last love or their first murder. I'm your host, Kai, and this show discusses true crime cases told in the form of a story with mystery and suspense. Be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder on Spotify, Apple, or whatever platform you're on so you don't miss any of the cases. I didn't put out an episode this weekend. I don't know if you noticed, but what I did was I ended up taking a long weekend off just like everyone else in the States. So in the States, it was Memorial Day, so it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday off. So yes, I sat like a lump on a log and watched movies and just took the day off. So I had a long weekend. It was super needed, and I was very thankful for it. However, I still wanted to bring my lambs their weekly episode, so in place of the midweek mini, I'm going to do a full. Also, in light of Memorial Day, I wanted to bring you a case about a soldier in hopes that we could help this family and get some answers. This is the case of Specialist Enrique Roman-Martinez. But first, I wanted to remind you to head on over to our exclusive group at patreon.com/love and murder. Our last bonus episode was a fun one where Shar and I, which if you've been here a long time, you know who Shar is, where we answered the questions of, am I the asshole? In this week's bonus, I'm talking about a case of a serial rapist who got exactly what he deserved in the end. Now, on to the show. Enrique Roman-Martinez, affectionately known as Quique by his family, was born on September 7th, 1998. He was described as a sweet, shy, respectful young man from Chino, California. He never liked to argue or fight and worked hard at avoiding bad situations if he could. Quote, "I've never seen my brother angry. He was just very sensitive. He was very funny. He loved to make jokes. He was incredibly giving and generous." End quote. In September 2016, when he was 17, he joined the U.S. Army, starting out as a 3-time volunteer so that he would become a better person, and he joined the Army to help his family out financially. At the time he joined, his mother had been working 3 jobs to help take care of the family. Quote, "He felt like it was going to make him a better man. He knew he lagged and he wanted to go so he could learn discipline and responsibility." End quote. He was stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina in March of 2017. He worked at the headquarters company at 37 Brigade Engineer Battalion, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 82nd Airborne Division as a human resources specialist. During his time in the military, Enrique earned the Army Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Service Medal, and Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, the Army Service Ribbon, and the Army Parachute Badge. Wow. And was actually 3 months into finishing his enlistment. So wow, between 2016 and 2020, he did all of that. Wow, amazing. That's just amazing. I'm sorry. Quote, "He was a sweet kid. He would take his shirt off his back for everybody." End quote. On Friday, May 22nd, 2020, Enrique went on a Memorial Day camping trip with some of his buddies, 7 other soldiers, on South Core Banks, one of the 2 barrier islands of Cape Lookout National Seashore in North Carolina. The soldiers who went with Enrique were Specialist Juan Avila, Alex R. Becerra, I think, Becerra, maybe, Joshua L. Curry, Benjamin E. Sibley, Private Anna Marie L. Cochell, Private First Class Samad A. Landrum, and Sergeant Samuel O. Moore. According to their reports, they took out a ferry out to the island and began setting up their campsite around midnight. On the evening of Saturday, May 23rd, between 7 to 7:30 p.m., Enrique was reported through a phone call to the police by Alex Becerra. No one had any answers except that they had last seen Enrique on Friday the 22nd. They'd all said they'd not seen him all that day. So this is a quote from the 911 call. Quote, "We woke up. He was not here. We've been looking for him all day. We were trying to find the park ranger or their offices or anything. We might be afraid that he hurt himself. We're not really sure." End quote. And then when the operator asked if he had any mental issues, Alex responded with, quote, "He wasn't diagnosed, but he did have suicidal tendencies." End quote. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop there. As a police officer, if somebody says that, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to the family to ask the family, because I'm not just going to go by that. I don't know. That just sounds, whenever I hear that, to me, that's just a red flag. Do you feel the same way? Alex and Marie Kochel and Samad Lundrum told investigators that they'd left the island on May 22nd at 3 a.m. to go get on a ferry to Davis, North Carolina. The rest of the soldiers agreed with these events. However, they all left out a couple of names of who was on the trip when they told investigators what happened that night. We actually came up with the 7 names of the people that was on the trip just later through investigation. When they actually did the initial questioning, 3 names were left out on who was on the trip. Also, at the time of initial questioning, 3 of the soldiers also denied that there were any drug use going on in the camp during their stay. In their reports, they stated that while setting up camp, Enrique's tent was blown over by a strong gust of wind. They helped him set it up, and as soon as they finished, Enrique allegedly walked away without a word. He left with only some shorts on, no shirt, no cell phone, no wallets, no supplies, nothing. And for some reason, I find this highly unlikely, especially since his sister mentioned in an interview that he couldn't see without his glasses. So why would he have left his glasses? He would have never gone anywhere without his glasses. And from somebody who experiences that, because I can see not far without my glasses, I can see close. So if I'm actually about to walk away and I'm not wearing contacts, I'm automatically picking up my glasses because I can't see anything. Anyway, the next morning around 8:30 a.m., they said they spent the entire day searching for Enrique but couldn't find him. So search efforts immediately started. The search started at the South Core Banks at around mile marker 46 and continued through Shackleford Banks and surrounding areas, including the immediate ocean area. So there's actually a map of the search, and I'll have that in our Patreon. A report stated, quote, "His phone and wallet were found at a campsite." Military and civilian investigators alike searched via ground and air and dealt with heavy winds, rain, and rough sea. However, they persevered, but during the search, very few clues were found. However, and interestingly enough, during the investigation, authorities found a report that the campers had been approached by a park ranger on that Saturday morning. The ranger had come to tell them to move their cars because they were parked in a no parking zone. So if I remember correctly, in the 911 call, didn't they say that they couldn't find a park ranger? Let me go back up to that quote, because I remember they said they couldn't find a park ranger. And I quote, "We were trying to find the park ranger or their offices or anything." Yet that morning, they had literally found a park ranger in the form of the park ranger finding them and telling them to move their cars. So something smells rotten. Something ain't adding up. Something ain't something. 6 days into the search, on May 29th, park rangers located a head which had washed up on the shore of Shackleford Banks. Dental records positively identified the severed head as Enrique's. 4 days later, on June 2nd, the search for anything else was suspended. Using the head, the medical examiner was unable to determine if decapitation was the cause of death. but said that the findings, quote, are most consistent with death due to homicide, end quote. The Division of Forensic Pathology at East Carolina University's Brody School of Medicine said in their report, quote, while decapitation is, in and of itself, universally fatal, the remainder of the body in this case was not available for examination, and therefore potential causes of death involving the torso and extremities cannot be excluded. A definitive cause of death cannot be determined, but the findings in this case are most consistent with death due to homicide, end quote. The medical examiner also performed a toxicology test on the head, and it was found that Enrique had no evidence of drug in his system. The report also stated that the jaw was broken in at least 2 places and, quote, evidence of multiple chop injuries of the head, end quote. Wow. The wound was 3/4 inch deep, up the cervical spine of the 7th cervical vertebrae, and was crescent-shaped. Crescent-shaped. Couldn't that be a crowbar? This is all allegedly. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not saying this is what happened. So I'm thinking crowbar. That could be crescent-shaped, right? What do y'all think that means? So the wound was 3/4 inches deep, up the cervical spine to the 7th cervical vertebrae, and was crescent-shaped. So what do you think that sounds like? 3 of the soldiers who went camping with Enrique were charged with different crimes, but the cause of his death remains unknown, and none of the charges were due to the disappearance. Officials spent thousands of hours investigating the case, and the Army even offered a reward of $50,000, now up from $25,000, because back when it first was going on, it was $25,000, but now it's $50,000 for any credible information concerning the circumstances of his death. Enrique's family has been anguished, I cannot even imagine, by his disappearance, and they're frustrated by the lack of answers. His sisters have been particularly hit hard. Quote, I just want to know why. Why my little brother? He was a sweet kid. He would take his shirt off his back for everybody. I am suffering, but it's nothing compared to what my mom is going through. This was her baby. End quote. This was a quote from his older sister, Griselda Martinez. In the summer of 2021, specialist Alex Becerra, one of the soldiers who went camping with Enrique, faced charges of conspiracy, disobeying a superior officer, failure to obey an order, making a false statement, and misusing, possessing, or manufacturing a controlled substance. 2 other soldiers, Private First Class Samad Landrum and Private Anna Marie Cochel, faced charges of using LSD the night Enrique died, violated Fort Bragg's COVID-19 travel rules, and conspiring with unnamed people to make a false statement the day Enrique was reported missing. The rest of the soldiers were all given different charges and different sentences, all for similar actions. All of the soldiers were charged with using LSD, disobeying a superior officer, and making false statements. So all of these people, except for Enrique, were on LSD. Now, okay, I'm going to put on my conspiracy glasses here for a second. Oh, let me put them on. All right. So I'm wondering if this is the events that happened, because they said that a gust of wind blew down his tent. They helped him put it up, and then he just walked away. So according to his sister, he doesn't like conflict. He doesn't like anything that makes him angry or that's going to bring around negative emotions. So he would try and walk away from it. Now, and then thinking about the kind of person that he's described as, what I'm wondering, because they found all these soldiers were using LSD, dude, and no drugs were found in Enrique's, and after the autopsy of the skull, no drugs were found in Enrique's system. So I wonder if they were talking about they were going to take drugs or something like that, and Enrique wasn't down for it. And maybe they were like teasing him or something. You know how people are with peer pressure. So maybe they were teasing him and saying, come on, you got to try it or whatever. Maybe they were already doing it, through something around those lines. And he just wanted to get away from the situation. Or maybe he said he was going to report them because this isn't what he signed up for. Or something along those lines. And being that they were using LSD, and this is all allegedly, I'm not saying this has happened. This is what happened. This is just me thinking out loud. Maybe not being in their right mind, they did something. Just wondering. Because they sure did lie the next day. And, quote, they were charged with making false statements. So this is just me thinking. This is not me saying this is what happened. This is not me saying definitive statements. This is all alleged. This is all just my opinion and just what I'm thinking out loud. All 7 have been arraigned and their trials are scheduled from May to September. And I didn't see any updates, so I'm guessing they're still waiting for their trials. With the charges against the soldiers, it initially gave the family hope that more information would come out. However, 3 years later, and they're still searching for answers. On October 19th, 2021, California Representative Norma Torres wrote a letter discussing her disapproval of how the investigation was handled. She also requested that the Inspector General review the case in detail, conduct a review of the Army's investigative process, and provide feedback on any potential ways to improve the process moving forward. Quote, "This young man was a hero. At 17 years old, he really wanted to serve his country and had to get permission from his mother to do so. I think that we owe our personnel, at the very least, and their families, the respect of giving them answers." To this day, she has been advocating for the Roman-Martinez family by asking the Army for investigation updates and encouraging the public to come forward with any information. According to Norma, the Army initially treated the disappearance as if Enrique had gone AWOL. AWOL means absent without leave. So basically, he just didn't come back to work. That's how they treated it. So while they were treating it as if he had just walked away from the military only with 3 months left, which makes no sense, but whatever. While they were treating it as if he went AWOL, critical time was lost in potentially finding evidence. Norma says that she's very unhappy that the Army didn't act more quickly. After the Army's Criminal Investigation Division, which is called CID, was notified, an investigation was launched, which lasted 18 months. During this time, CID special agents, FBI personnel, and the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit conducted more than 400 interviews and submitted more than 100 items for analysis. The investigation reached a point where there was no unaddressed investigative leads. But even after the investigation, the family is still left searching for answers and justice. Norma and the Roman-Martinez family have complained about the lack of communication from the Army. When it comes to military personnel and their investigations, the Army normally holds information close to the chest, meaning they don't really share anything with anybody outside of the military, which can make it challenging to get updates, to get timely updates about ongoing investigations. As of now, the investigation has been labeled as a cold case. However, according to the CID, they're still actively trying to solve the case by using specialized techniques that are typically employed in cold cases. According to Chris Gay, a CID spokesperson, these methods involved reviewing evidence periodically to analyze if any recent technological developments or investigative techniques can be utilized to provide a fresh perspective to the cold case. It also includes continued efforts to develop information from the public as well as guidance from law enforcement experts. Quote, "After exhausting hundreds of leads and thousands of hours of investigation, there are no more credible investigative leads remaining at this time, but the case itself is not closed. It is in a cold case status. As always, if new information pertinent to any of our investigations become available, CID can and often does reopen investigations if warranted. End quote. This came from Jeffrey Castro, an Army Criminal Investigation Division spokesperson. There's also a larger question on Norma's mind about which agency should have jurisdiction in this case, where military personnel commits a crime that is located outside of an active military base. So this happened outside of the military base. So her question is, should civilians have jurisdiction? Should the local cops, should the park rangers, or should the military have jurisdiction? So for instance, if park rangers had taken over this, for instance, or the local authorities, they had more knowledge of the landscapes and like best places to look and when it's high tide, when it's low tide, all of that stuff. So that's what she's wondering. Like, should it have been the local park rangers? Should it have been, other authorities that are not in the military that should have taken over the case? Who should have jurisdiction here? As they're saying the investigation continues, Norma encourages anyone to come forward if they have any information that could help in solving the case. Because at the end of the day, it's actually about bringing closure to his family and ensuring that justice is served for Enrique. His sister, Griselda, expressed her disappointment and grief in a CBS LA interview saying, quote, "And this is what happened to him. We only have a part of him. That's it. This is not right. This should never have happened to my brother." End quote. And this is definitely a tragic story. Like, there's no answers for the mother. Her son went out with what's supposed to be his friends and people he's supposed to trust and never came back. Things aren't adding up. Statements aren't adding up. Facts aren't adding up. And nobody's giving any answers. The people were discharged, but they weren't arrested. And they were discharged on, menial things, not anything that would actually have any real consequences. Quote, "This tragic death is a real mystery on what exactly happened. All logical theories or suspicions that were developed to date have been investigated and either discounted or disproven." End quote. This was a quote from Steve Chandler, CID Special Investigator. The behavior of the soldiers who went camping with him, as well as the sequence of events surrounding his disappearance, just the whole thing have left many questions unanswered. Quote, "A lot of people took his kindness for weakness, and that was the strongest thing about him. We're fearing his death just over 3 years ago has been forgotten." End quote, which this was a quote from his sister. Enrique's goal when he left the military was to help people who had mental health illnesses with a focus on PTSD. And his dream job was as a pharmacologist. This is how he planned to help these people. If you have any information about Enrique's disappearance, please contact the CID at 910-396-8777, 910-396-8777. It would be anonymous, but also remember that there's a $50,000 reward leading to the arrest and conviction of the people involved in his murder. You can also find a link in the show notes below to sign a petition for justice for Enrique. So what do you think about this case? Do you think it sounds fishy? Do you think these 7 soldiers either know what happened to him or did something to him? I gave my opinion. And again, that's all it was, my opinion. And I'd love to hear your opinions. You have 3 ways to let me know. You can tell me in the comments below. You can join the Lamb Facebook group, which the link is in the comments below. It's a free and welcoming group where you can discuss the cases with the rest of the lambs. Or you can join the exclusive Lamb community here at www.patreon.com/loveandmurder. Right now, we have options starting at only $1 a month. But before I tell you about our Patreon, I want to remind you that if you have any information regarding Enrique's disappearance, his murder, please contact CID at 910-396-8777 and also click on that link for the petition and sign that petition for justice for Enrique. So about our Patreon, if you join Patreon at only $1 a month, you get commercial-free episodes. So like this episode minus the commercial, and also with all the additions of the case. So like pictures, videos, links, pictures of evidence, just all of that. So all the extras of a case, you'll get that in the Patreon. You can get that right now at $1 a month and be grandfathered in, because soon this tier is going to go up. The price of this tier is going to go up due to all the extras that you're getting. So I was actually advised that I'm charging way too little for everything that you're getting. $1 a month for everything that you're getting. So soon the price is going to go up. I haven't decided exactly when. So if I were you, I would just get in right now and you'll be grandfathered in at whatever price that you joined at. The best tier is the $5 a month and above, because not only do you get these things, but you also get bonus episodes and access to everything that I post throughout the entire internet. So if I post it on the internet, you're going to get it in the Patreon. You just get it here in our little lamb community. www.patreon.com/love and murder. Come on over. We'd love to have you. Before you go, please don't forget to give me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're on. That would help me out greatly, and it takes no time at all. So thanks in advance. Join us on social media. You find all the links in the show notes below. And as always, I want to remind you, as how we end every episode, you can say it with me now, that it's all love and no murder, y'all. See you next week.